Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Jar of Marble dwellers and Jar of Marble curious. My name is Linda and this is Jar of Marbles. I hope that this finds you well. I hope it's been a good week. And if it hasn't, I'm glad that you've come here to sit back and chew the fat a little bit with me for a whole 20 plus minutes. I'm always so glad to see you here. This week, I wanted to talk about protecting your energy from toxic individuals. Access denied. As humans, we naturally seek connections and interactions with others. We thrive on socialising and building relationships that bring joy, positivity and growth into our lives. However, not all interactions are healthy or beneficial for us in life. We often come across individuals who do not wish us well. Really? No, really, Bob, really. Or who do not elevate our spirits. I mean, we know plenty of those, or we have come across those kind of people that as soon as, you say, hello, how are you? Straight away you go, oh, why did I ask that? Because they will tell you just how miserable and terrible their life is. And they just seem to be always like that. It's important to recognise that we do not owe anyone our presence or energy, especially if it compromises our well-being. Now, that can be really a tricky one if it's a family member, a sibling or a daughter or a son or a partner, friend, the list goes on, parents, where they are just awful. And sometimes that means denying them access to our lives. One of the most critical aspects of self-care and self-preservation, as you know, I'm very big on the self-care and self-preservation, is recognising when we are not safe with certain people. Now, safety, that covers, a gamut of different meanings. Safety can well be that when you leave their company, you feel completely drained, you feel confused, you feel as bad as you always do when you are in their company. You hope against all hopes and odds that, things will improve. But really, if you're having to brace yourself every time you see these folk, and if you ever, have tried to talk to them about it and they deny any part of it being their fault or deny that they have made you uncomfortable, deny all the things that they have said to you, then over time you're either going to roll up and just let them beat you around the head with a piece of fish and have a fairly ordinary life, or you just walk away. And that can be in any fashion that you decide, whether it is you just don't turn up to functions, you are too busy with some toe fungus to show up for coffee, or whatever it takes. I learned a long time ago, nobody deserves your truth. You don't have to tell the bottom line truth. And I'll tell you why. The reason is most people are not mature enough to accept the truth, and they're certainly not going to accept yours. Gut instincts are powerful tools that can guide us in making informed decisions about the relationships we choose to maintain. If you find yourself in a situation where you feel uncomfortable, anxious or drained in the presence of certain individuals, it's important to listen to your intuition. Your body and mind may be telling you that these people are not healthy for you and that it's time to set boundaries. Now, this is where it can get really tricky depending on what the circumstances are in regard to setting boundaries, and saying no to toxic individuals can be challenging as we may fear backlash or conflict, and that is really, really quite a tricky one there. But as soon as you realise that, backlash all you like, babe, then you can move on. However, it is essential to prioritise our well-being over pleasing others. Now, that is a huge subject right there. And oh boy, have I had my share of people pleasing, and I still do it to a degree, I know. But to the way I was, no way, because I was just coming out of situations completely confused, completely heartbroken, completely I just didn't really know what was going on. Instead of, and where I'm at now, I go, you know what? This is way too complicated. It doesn't need to be this complicated, and I will not be picked apart by anybody because it might not just suit me on any given day. I haven't got to my age where I'm answerable to a person who thinks that, well, I need to know what's going on in your life and you don't tell me now, I'm never going to speak to you again. Okay, there's a door, mate. Don't forget your hat. Anyway, as I was saying, if you find yourself where you are in situations that are draining, it is essential that you've got to really look out for yourself. And if that's a new kind of concept, that might seem too frightening. But I can say from experience, when you do start prioritising yourself, it's like, why didn't I do this sooner? Because you do have the right to protect your mental, emotional and physical health. It does not matter whether they get it or not. And most of these people don't. And you know why? Because they don't want to. They don't want to. No, they don't, Bob. You are not obligated to entertain or engage with individuals who do not bring positivity into your life. And you can tell when they're lying, and you can tell that they're uncomfortable because you're getting a little bit close to something that they think, that you want to know. And it's like, really? No. Access to your energy and presence should be earned by those who genuinely care about you and elevate your spirit, not people who are using you, getting a lot out of you, and they're only being half decent to you because, well, they might be a bit stuck without you, whatever it is that you're providing for them, and that maybe you've been behaving in a certain way for so long that you really don't know how to back out of a situation. And sometimes the simplest answer is just to stop. Negotiating your worth in relationships means recognizing your own value. Now, I remember when I first really understood that I needed to really get my own sense of value in place and not settling for anything less. And it took quite some time, so I listened and read to everything about valuing oneself. And initially, honestly, I could have been reading about potatoes. It just didn't really sink in. But over time, it really did. And I really started respecting myself instead of waiting for certain individuals to respect me. And the ones that were not going to respect me had a list of things that I'd done wrong, lists of things that, I should know and didn't get right. And it's like, toxic individuals who drain your energy, belittle you, or do not have your best interests at heart do not deserve access to your precious time and energy. It's okay to say no and protect yourself from such individuals. You know what? You might not even get the opportunity to say no. Just not being around sends a fairly clear message. Not available. Thank you. Not really. Not really. Not really, Bob. I do understand how this feels. It's been a journey of the entirety of most of my life where I didn't understand, obviously, as a child, and didn't really give two hoots when I was a teenager, and then got married and had businesses and just got really busy. And I didn't realise just how toxic my family, for example, was, and that when things started falling apart, I had no choice but to just keep on raising my three children and do what I had to do, and being in another country actually was a huge bonus. Now, there's 355,000 stories all in that statement there, and there might be people listening to this go, oh, but I know her and she's nice. Well, that's great. That's long. That's great. That's great that you have had that experience. Super duper booper. But you didn't live in our house. You're not a member of the family. You don't know the truth. But, little bits and pieces have started creeping out, and what has been creeping out isn't very good. But anyway, don't get me started. The point is, I come from a very toxic family, and I stepped away when I was raising my own daughters and did not want to raise them to respect people who were just the lowest of the low and had done the most terrible things. And when I started falling upon information and situations that I just happened to be at, well, I suppose you could call it the right place at the right time, to realise there was just so much more that I didn't know, and there's still so much I don't know. And guess what, marble dwellers, I don't want to know. It's all very lowbrow. It's all very ordinary. And I thought, I'm not raising my children in this manner. I'm not going to do this to myself anymore. And so I stopped. And so when you've had to walk away from family members, as so many people have done, when it was happening to me, it was something that wasn't talked about. And when I had shared it with people, I was getting these one-liners like, oh, that's your family. It's like, really? Oh, thank you for that observation. It was just people were not in a place to understand that, some people have to walk away. Some people simply do for their well-being, for their life. They can never be happy living under that kind of regime and raising their kids in the same manner that you've been raised and then expect something wonderful to happen. You can tell with so many people out there that genuinely do not enjoy their children. It's a horrible thing to see, and I can smell it straight away. Remember, you've got to remember, or at least embrace the fact that you have to, not only have to, you have the right to protect your mental, emotional, and physical health. Negotiating your worth in relationships means recognizing your own value. Now, as I said, I did a lot of studying on that because I realized that I was putting up with really stupid situations because I didn't value myself. Doesn't matter what what they were trying to do or not do. I was not looking within myself. I wasn't looking at, why do I accept this in relationships? Why don't I question this? And I thought, you know what? The bottom line was I was just not really loving myself, caring about myself. So it's really important to know that protecting your energy is not selfish. It is an act of self-love and self-care. And if you have children or you've got great friends, how far would you go to protect your kids or protect your friends or family? You would go to the ends of the earth if you are that kind of person. Well, that's how I feel about myself. I'd be waiting a very long time, Marble Dwellers, if someone was going to come along and take care of me 24/7. Not that I want that, but trying to make a point here, by denying access to toxic individuals, you are prioritising your own well-being and creating a space for positive, healthy relationships to thrive and actually have, wonderful relationships with other people that you probably wouldn't be able to have otherwise because, we do seem to, like attract like. Like if you are a big drinker, for example, you're going to hang out with people who are also big drinkers, because if you hang out with people who aren't drinkers, they're just all going to look at you and go, do you really feel that having 2 bottles of red by yourself tonight, every night, all your life is actually a good thing? Like, you understand where I'm coming from. Surrounding yourself with people who genuinely care about you just elevates your spirit, and it can really have, and has a profound impact on your health in all ways. And here are some tips on how to protect your energy and deny access to toxic individuals. First of all, you've really got to trust your gut. Your intuition, it's a powerful tool. If you feel uncomfortable or drained, listen to that feeling and get out of there, or don't go. You've heard yourself or others say over the years, oh, look, I've got to go and I really don't want to go. I always feel uncomfortable. They pick on me. They criticise my weight. They make fun of me. But it's like, hello, why are you doing it? You must either really love it or you're just so caught up in the drama that, well, I've got to do it because I'll get upset. But will they? Will they really? I mean, really? People that are horrible to you will be upset that you didn't turn up, or they'll just be upset that you didn't turn up so they can abuse you. I mean, I don't know. These are questions that I had to ask myself too. So you've got to set very clear boundaries. And if you can't communicate your boundaries, because it's all very well me saying, well, you've got to communicate your boundaries and you've got to be assertive, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're dealing with real ding-dongs, that's not going to happen. You're just better off being always busy, leave the country, not well, whatever it takes. Who cares? Some people, I don't like to tell lies. Well, really? I'm sure that there are a few things that you could say that's just going to, protect you. You're protecting yourself. I would lie through my teeth to protect my children. I would lie through my teeth for my best friend if I know that she needs protection. So why wouldn't I lie through my teeth to protect myself from people who don't give a damn whether I'm dead or alive? And when you really think about it, you're actually lying anyway by rolling up to cooperate. You're lying to yourself and you're lying about the whole situation, if that's really the excuse that you're using. Because some people, and I've done it myself, Marble Dwellers, I've come up with some real beauties to justify, my behaviours, my decisions. And it was all because I was caught up and I wasn't stopping long enough to go, what am I actually doing? I don't actually have to do this. Now, it didn't happen simply because I asked that question, but over a period of time when I started getting answers, it really, really, proved to be invaluable, those kind of questions. And I hope that if this is something that resonates with you, that it is something that you can go, you know what, bugger it, I'm not doing this anymore. And I know there's many, many, many of us out there. Some people don't say anything about it at all. They just sort of suck it up and suffer. And sometimes things can just be so terrible that you just can't suck it up anymore. And that's what happened to me. And we're talking 30 years ago. And I don't regret any of my decisions. Nothing has happened that's gone, okay, well, I was wrong about that. Everything that I suspected and everything that I knew was absolutely bang on. But on a much more lighter note, Marble Dwellers, I was just been looking at some really interesting facts, and some of them are kind of freaky and some of them you probably know, but you're probably smarter than me and sort of you do know that. But did you know that lemons contain more sugar than strawberries, and that strawberries contain more vitamin C than oranges? How weird is that? Did you know that pollen never deteriorates? It's one of the few natural substances that lasts indefinitely. Interestingly, though, isn't it, that most of us know that honey doesn't go off. I think it lasts for something like 3,000 years or something ridiculous, but absolutely amazing. 90% of all extinct species are birds. God, you wouldn't want to be a bird, would you? Eh? And did you know there are 8 peas per pod on average? When I think about it, that's about right. Have you ever counted peas in a pod? I mean, one would have to have a little bit of restraint there, wouldn't they? Because, when you open up a pea pod, you just want to get those peas in, down the hatch. A tomato is a fruit, not a vegetable. Most of us do know that. But I didn't know this. Did you know that lettuce is a part of the sunflower family? I know. How very, very interesting. Did you know that coconuts kill more people than sharks do? Approximately 150 people are killed each year by coconuts. Now, this is just things you don't hear about, isn't it? Fingernails grow nearly 4 times faster than toenails. I know this because I like to go for a bit of a pedicure, and sometimes if you've ever, split a nail or cut a nail too short and you're waiting for it to catch up, just take a bit of eternity, isn't it? Did you know that Venus is the only planet that rotates clockwise? Oh, my God. And this might be a good one if you ever get stuck in quicksand. By raising your legs slowly and lying on your back, you cannot sink in quicksand. I hope that this saves your life. You're welcome. Hashtag access denied. How do we deal with it? So even in a work situation, which can be so, so difficult. I remember I worked in an office where people were initially very, very friendly. One was always really lovely, but there were a couple of them that were just people that I just see them as people with just serious mental illness. Their behaviour was absolutely shocking, and this grown women in their late 50s and just with, smart remarks and openly siding with the bosses that also worked there, who were just, oh my goodness, just people that were nasty, just saying nasty things about people and racist remarks. And you would just sit there and just think, wow, you don't even mind saying these things out in front of people. You don't mind who hears you. You're quite sure of your safety. You're quite sure of your point. And so I found for myself while I remained there that I had to stay neutral. I would just keep my head down and just do my job. And I ended up wearing hearing like a plug in my ear so that I could just listen to music just quietly in one ear so they couldn't see that I would have it in my ear. I mean, that's how bad. I even had to hide that fact. And it was just horrible watching how people were openly cruel to each other, bar this one other lady who worked there. And we would now and then just look at each other and just like, wow. And obviously time went by and I left. I just couldn't bear it any longer, and I think I had a heart attack to get out of that one. But talking about getting out of things by telling enormous stories, I remember one time I needed to get some time off work, and I wasn't entitled to any. I was nowhere near due for any. So my father died. Well, he didn't. My father's actually died about 3 times, which has come very handy when I've needed to do things. Now, for those that don't know, he hasn't been a part of my life for decades. He's just one of those very toxic people who lives in another reality and doesn't acknowledge his grandchildren, stopped acknowledging me many, many years ago, and has some story to back that up, which is fantastic. But he came in handy where I'd say, oh, yeah, he died in Canada. And so I had to because I was going to Canada and there was no way I was going to get the time off. So he died while he was on holiday in Canada. So, of course, I had to go there and, be supportive and all the rest of it. And do I feel guilty? No. Why would I? Why would I bother to feel guilty? And I know a couple of my friends at the time thought it was absolutely hilarious, but it also taught them too, like, hey, you do not owe people any part of your truth if they are busy tripping you up, busy, trying to make your life miserable. There's just no part of me that goes no. And that was I was really becoming quite strengthened in the knowledge that, I owe me my loyalty. I owe me anything that I need to do in my life. I'm going to look after me. I'm not going to make sure that they, are going to have the power to decide whether I'm going to do something. I do not think so. I remember with absolute clarity the day that I stood my ground and I just looking into the eyes of those who sought to destroy my happiness, I realised that I held the key to my own destiny. I remember just taking a really deep breath and just feeling the strength within me rise, and with unwavering determination, there's no other way of putting it, I just denied them access to my life. And with each denial, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders as if I had shed the burden of toxic influences that had held me back for so long. I refused to give them permission to dictate my emotions, my choices, and my happiness. I took back the power that I had unknowingly given away and embraced it fully for myself. And you may relate to this because of a lot of what we do it unknowingly. So as our awareness, rises, we start realising, hey, hold on a minute, I actually, do have choices. And at first there were protests, attempts to manipulate and control me, but I stood firm, unyielding in my resolve. I set healthy boundaries, prioritised my own well-being, and surrounded myself with those who uplifted and supported me. It wasn't always easy, but I knew that it was the right thing to do. And as time passed, I saw the positive impact of my decision on my life. I saw the positive impact it had on my children, which was much more meaningful to me. And as I nurtured, them, it brought a whole lot of positivity and love into my life. Now, years later, I look back at my decision with immense gratitude. My future self thanked me for having the courage to deny access to those who could have brought harm into my life. I have paved the way for a future that was filled with positivity, joy and fulfillment. And those who mattered most to me, my children and dear friends who've been watching my journey, have been inspired to do the same in their own lives. In the end, I realised that denying permission on and power to those who could destroy my happiness was one of the greatest gifts I've ever given myself and those around me. It set me on a path of self-discovery, growth and true happiness. And for that, I will always be eternally grateful. So, Jar of Marble dwellers, thank you so much as always for coming to spend a little bit of time with me. I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that it hit home and helped in any way, or you're just sitting there nodding with agreement. Yeah, get it, got it. So off and away we go. Say g'day to the family for me, pat the pussycat, and I'll see you next time. Okay, bye.